The very nature of video games is that you're going to get better over time, but are you maximizing your gaming potential? Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanks, 10 modern gamer hacks you need to know. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started, I am not advocating for hacking. That's actually something that all of the various anti-cheat software is probably not going to, not ban you over. So, I don't think that you thought I meant you should start hacking, but just in case. All right, all joking aside, starting off at number 10, you can expand your storage without having to buy an expensive proprietary expansion card. You know those damn things Microsoft wants you to buy to expand your storage space on the Xbox? Yeah, well, guess what? You can install a generic card. It's not simple or even necessarily super cheap, but I also really just hate proprietary crap. If I'm completely honest, just having other options is important to me. And certain modders have agreed. They've created their own custom expansion cards for the console. Not going to link them here because I don't know how reliable they are, but they're shells that go for about $30. And then you need to buy very specific compatible SSDs that will work when installed in the expansion slot. Word of warning, they tend to be expensive, even when you're buying them on your own. So you're not going to save a lot of money with this solution. Some, not tons. And there are also additional steps to get it to, work. There is a simpler option as well. Just get an external hard drive. Xbox has a list of compatible drives, and while you can't play Xbox Series X games off standard externals, you can store games on them. You just have to transfer them to the internal hard drive when you want to play them, which is not the fastest thing in the world, but much faster than downloading it. That said, original Xbox and 360 games, you can actually play off of there. It's the Series X and S games that have to be transferred onto the SSD. Understandable. A big reason people were sold on this current console generation was load time, so the SSD is kind of vital for this generation. It's not as convenient as having a proper expansion card, but it is a lot cheaper, and it gets you a lot more space with zero setup, so unless you're willing to put some extra work in and aren't afraid of the risk, I don't really know exactly what the risk is because this isn't something I'm planning on doing personally. I don't know. I guess really just get another hard drive. Don't do all of this crap unless you really don't like what Microsoft is doing and you want to stick it to them in your own special way that doesn't actually affect them at all. It's for you. It's fine if it's for you, just know that it's for you. At number 9, you can finally turn off the PS5 startup beep. They did it after years of having to put up with the PlayStation's annoying, dog-disturbing, parent-notifying startup noise. Oh, you just got the baby to sleep and you're gonna play the game? Beep, you can't play the game. I'm a baby and I need a bottle and I need a diaper. Yeah, the July 31st, 2023 update made it so you could turn that beep off. There's a lot of reasons you would want to as well, and now it's actually quite simple. Go into settings, go to system, scroll down to beep sound. You can either adjust the volume or straight up turn it off. Personally, I actually turned it down rather than off. I'm kind of accustomed to it, if I'm completely honest. I also don't have any babies that I'm worried about waking up, nor do I have any parents that I'm worried about notifying if I am playing a game. They are states away from here and couldn't care less. Honestly, the volume, though, I really do like that they gave you the option to turn it down. But for everybody who's completely like, I don't want this anymore, you can also shut it off. It's great. Wonderful addition to the PlayStation 5 settings. At number 8, you can use a PlayStation 4 controller on PlayStation 5 games. The PlayStation 5 doesn't force you to use the new DualSense all the time normally. You can use a DS4 to play PS4 games installed on the console, but if you want to play a PS5 game with a PS4 controller, it's not going to happen. At least not without this hack. Now, the limitation doesn't make a lot of sense. You can turn off all the new DualSense features in the option menu, so there's actually nothing limiting your ability to play PlayStation 5 games. But I guess Sony just wants you to use the new controller. Proprietary crap, blah, 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 blah. There is a pretty unusual workaround, however. If you set up remote play on the PS5 and connect a DS4 to your phone using Bluetooth, the DS4 will work on anything, next-gen exclusive games included. It is a roundabout method for sure, but if you prefer the PS4 controller to the DualSense, which is not like a fringe opinion, a lot of people love the PlayStation 4 controller, then this is a way to use it on PS5 games. There are people who don't even know that you can't use PS4 controllers on PS5 PS5 games because all they do is play via streaming. And I'll say this, though. I'm not sure latency stuff. You probably need a pretty fast connection for it to work. Also, you'll probably want to plug in that phone. Otherwise, you're going to eat right through that battery on something that you're going to consider dumb when you got to call 911 over that hostage situation you end up in. You have a phone? Quick, call the authorities. I can't. I was using the PlayStation 4 controller, PlayStation 5 games. And number 7, Xbox controllers can quickly switch between console, PC, and tablet, and smartphones. Is there another option? If there is, I'm sure it can switch between them. I don't know, I don't really do this, but it's a nice little trick that was only recently added to Xbox controllers that makes swapping between different devices pretty simple. The only limiting factor is that you need a Bluetooth adapter, not a wireless one. So sync up your controller to the Xbox and whatever other device you want to hook it up to. I guess the options are limitless there. Whatever an Xbox controller will hook up to. But with both connected in sequence, now you switch which one your controller's connected to by making use of the sync button on top of the controller. If you want to switch to the console, double tap the button and the guide button will flash once. If you want to connect to the computer or the tablet or the refrigerator or the smart couch or whatever, hold the sync button until it flashes 2 or 3 times, and that means it switches to non-console. It's that simple. Just tap if you want to use the Xbox console, hold if you want to use something else. I mean, I don't know why you need to hook up your Xbox controller to a footstool or whatever, but it's easier to now. And number 6, you can finally sort your games into damn folders on Nintendo Switch. One of the most requested features on the Switch was to sort games and apps into folders, and they finally made it possible March 21st, 2022. Not saying that's super recent, but there are a lot of people that still don't know you can do it. It took 5 years after the console was originally released to do it, might I add. A lot of time to build up a library of games, and having some way to sort them other than a huge list, of course, is better than a huge list. So you scroll over to all software and press L to open up the groups tag. If you've never made one, it'll prompt you to make a new group, and from there you select the games you want to add. You get the option to arrange them in whatever order you want. Do that, get everything nice and tidy, give it a name, and you're good to go. Nintendo's one of those companies that's crazy innovative, but basic features like organization elude them. Like, they're basically like your guitarist friend who can absolutely shred and his apartment looks like hell. I mean, better late than never. He should clean and organize that apartment, and could, and it's good when he does. Thanks, Nintendo. And number 5, PS5 sharing features are actually really powerful. We've mentioned this one before, but it's a good place to repeat it here. You'd think it'd be plagued with limitations, but the console sharing feature does exactly what it says. You can share your entire game library with another console. You need PlayStation Plus, so it's not like gratis or anything. But if you enable console sharing with another account, that account will play your games and watch your media even when your console is off. It can only be enabled on one console at a time, and it should only be done with someone you trust, because it's literally just giving full access to your account to someone else on PlayStation. Feels like cheating a little bit, but it works. There are a couple of downsides, of course. Even with offline play enabled, certain games still require online check-ins every hour, and if your friend is playing the game, you'll get booted out. At least the person sharing always gets priority, but if you want to play a game at the same time as your friend or family, the host console always gets first pick, so you'll need to coordinate with the person you're sharing with when you can actually play the games, otherwise you may end up waiting for a while. That's why it's essential you share with someone you know or feel comfortable with, because it's got all the limitations of playing on a local console in that regard. If the host wants to play, you gotta wait your turn. But that's the only significant downside. Otherwise, you're free to play your friends' games as much as you want. It's kind of an amazing system, but you only get the most out of it if you stick to close friends that are gonna be nice and courteous about it. At number 4, getting incompatible games to work on the Steam Deck. One of the trickier parts of the amazingly versatile Steam Deck is that it uses a Linux-based operating system, so that not every game is compatible with it. Steam is very popular, as is the Deck, so compatibility is improving all the time, but once in a while you find a game that just doesn't work on your standard, right out of the box, Steam Deck. Sometimes the current stable version of Proton, the Deck's operating system, isn't enough and you want to try out the experimental branch. You can can configure it on a per game basis. All you have to do is click the little gear beside the game's name, scroll down, you'll find an option to have it load using Proton Experimental. This will work for some games, but what about games that can't be played using the Steam launcher? There is a way around that as well, and actually a lot of options. Probably the simplest one is to use something called non-Steam launchers, a script for the Steam Deck that will install all the other game launchers to their own Proton compatible folder. You can pick which launchers you want, and it can even be installed on a micro SD. It's more of a one-size-fits-all solution, and there are other ways to get the same thing going, depending on your tech savvy. Lutris or Heroic are two other options. They both have their own positives and negatives, but they're useful for people who want to get as many games possible working on the deck. Lots of different ways of doing it. Moving on to number 3, Dev Mode on the Xbox Series X and S is a pretty powerful tool. No secret that it's one of the best emulator systems on the market. Great for people who want to play old games on their TV. For a while, using emulation software was pretty easy. You could download them right off the store, but that didn't last. Microsoft purged it, made it so that this stuff was inaccessible. Fortunately, still possible to emulate on the system. You just have to go through a slightly convoluted process to get onto Dev Mode. Might sound bad, like it's some kind of weird debug thing that'll permanently affect your console, but not that drastic, trust me. Dev Mode, it's meant for developers, and it launches through an app. The trick here is you have to download the green Xbox Dev Mode app, which requires some sign up through your Microsoft account, asks a series of questions, not complicated, but if you need some help, there is a pretty thorough Reddit post walking through the entire process in the link below. Dev Mode isn't just great for emulation. There's a lot of pretty unusual and interesting apps that inventive users have created that can be installed this way. Again, not the most straightforward thing unless you're pretty tech literate. And I would stick to the guide I linked to, but there's nothing that's going to put your device in danger. You can always freely switch off Dev Mode whenever. It's one of those things that feels like you're doing something wrong, but it's an official Microsoft feature, and at least so far, basically anything goes in Dev Mode. You're free to do whatever, like emulate games with no repercussions. Just don't take that as legal advice, because it is not. And at number 2, tips to improve Switch/Steam Deck battery life. The Switch can last 3 to 8 hours on handheld. You can actually do better if you switch on airplane mode. If you're on handheld mode, chances are you don't need Bluetooth, NFC, and Wi-Fi enabled. Best to switch it off and select one as per requirement. Another good one is set a 10-minute screen timeout just in case you ever leave the Switch on in the room. Maybe forget about it. Airplane mode will save you like 20-30 minutes. Cutting down brightness by 50%, however, will save you hours. It's a constant battle to retain battery life, and this is probably the best way. The backlight is one of the biggest energy hogs on either the Switch or the Steam Deck, really any handheld console. I tend to put on auto brightness. I think that is a very good way of not having it brighter than it needs to be. But if you're desperate, you can go ahead and turn on dark mode. Makes the OLED switches use less power. It's not necessarily as great. The Steam Deck, however, gives you a lot more options. I mean, you got all that same stuff. You got your brightness, you got your airplane mode and all that. But man, you can do a lot in terms of how a game performs on the Steam Deck. You can set games so they're not as demanding. Like you can use 40 FPS, which is kind of a middle ground between 30 and 60. Looks better than 30, but you're not literally generating double the amount of frames. In fact, you're only generating another 10 frames per second. So it's not a big jump in amount of work done. And it looks way less sluggish. Another pretty good fix is setting the resolution at 1280 by 720 or even lower at 1024 by 640 with FSR enabled. That sharpens the image. And that's just the start. The overall goal is to decrease unnecessary systems and play games that aren't taxing on the internals. Like a pixel art indie game isn't going to drain a whole lot of battery compared to Starfield, obviously. And finally, how to boot into big picture mode on PC startup. A lot of people are connecting their PCs to the TV and using it as an all-in-one entertainment center. Your standard PC interface isn't exactly built for the big screen though, but Steam's big picture mode, fantastic alternative that allows you to use a controller to navigate and play games without having to mess with the mouse and keyboard. Big picture mode, or what will eventually just be the Steam Deck UI ported over to PC, is just easier to use than a standard Windows desktop on a TV, so a lot of folks use it for that. Great option, no way to immediately start your computer in big picture mode unless you put in a little extra work though. Steam has the option to start up in the mode by default, so that part's easy, but if you want to turn it on every time you start up a PC and basically turn your PC into a Steam machine, first thing you have to do, set up automatic login, then set Steam to launch on startup. Depending on setup, that may be all you need to do if you want to dedicate a PC to Steam. It's maybe not something I would suggest as a novice, but there's instructions out there, and it's actually not that difficult to do, so if you really want to transform your PC into a Steam machine, which is great for PC on TV gaming, it's very possible. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on GameRanks.